Hello and welcome to Glasgow Doors Open Days Digital Festival. This event will begin soon, but first we have a brief housekeeping message. So that you can get the most out of this session, we'd like to point out a few features of Zoom. By clicking on the buttons at the bottom of the Zoom window, you will be able to access the chat room, and if you are in a webinar, you will also be able to make use of the Q&A function. The Q&A function is so that you can ask specific questions of the speaker, which they will be able to answer time allowing at the end of the session. Use the chat room to contribute more generally to the discussion or to share links and resources. When using these features, please mind your P's and Q's. Both will be monitored and recorded. Most sessions will be recorded and uploaded to Glasgow Doors Open Days Festival YouTube channel and website. If you're in a meeting, please make sure you keep your microphone on mute unless otherwise directed by the host. If for some reason the session ends unexpectedly or you lose connection, please just click the link again and wait to be let back in. Similarly, if the host loses connection, please bear with us. We will do our best to manage any connection issues as and when they occur, and may contact you by email if necessary. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love to hear about your experience of our digital festival. Fill out our survey to be in with a chance of winning a prize. Our survey is available at www.glasgowdoorsopendayfestival.org.uk/survey. We hope you enjoy this event.
All right, good evening everyone. Welcome to the first of the GIA's 3 Behind the Prize events, which we're holding tonight in conjunction with Glasgow Doors Open Days. My name is Phil Zushper. I'm the president of the Glasgow Institute of Architects. For those of you who don't know, the GIA is a chapter of the Royal Incorporation of Architects in Scotland, and each year we hold the GIA Student Awards as a means of recognising the work of the very best architecture students across both of Glasgow's 2 schools of architecture. The awards are assessed by the GIA Council, and the standards that we set for those are very high. So it really is a true mark of achievement for any of the students that win one of these awards. In the past, we've usually just held an award ceremony, and something that we introduced last year was this forum, which we've called Behind the Prize, which is a platform to try and bring together the universities to discuss architecture and education in the built environment, and also just to celebrate the fantastic work of the students and allow everybody to see the great work that's being produced. And I think this year more than ever, given the difficult circumstances around which many of the students have had to finish the academic year, obviously there's been a real challenge around COVID-19. So really just want to use this opportunity to showcase and celebrate the fantastic work that the students put out. By extension, we should also use this opportunity to thank and congratulate the staff of the universities for their efforts in this respect, and for pulling off the very first all-digital degree shows for both schools and their histories. On that note, this is the first time that we're doing this event digitally as well, as is the same for Glasgow Doors Open Days, which is entirely a digital event this year also. So whilst we don't need to do any of the usual bump about fire drills and health and safety guidance, we do apologise for any technical hiccups in advance, so please do bear with us. But that's all I've got to say really. I'll hand over now to my colleague Massimo, who has been instrumental in organising this event, and he'll tell you a bit more about the format for the evening, and hope you enjoy the presentations this evening.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Phil. Yeah, so everyone, yeah, welcome to the second ever Behind the Prize event. So we're really happy to be able to still put on this event, even though, like, despite the circumstances, and we hope, it can really help out all you students looking to see what's been winning the awards this year at uni. The theme of tonight is disorder, which, as you'll see, applies in a few different ways to the three speakers' projects. The way we'll run the night is we're basically having the student present their project, then we'll have a couple questions when they're done. So yeah, please don't hesitate to submit your questions in the little Q&A box, and I'll read them out after to the speakers. This event is really centred on helping you the students, and to create this discussion on people's projects would be a real plus of having an event like this. So yeah, please just ask as many as you want. Really go for it. Without further ado, we'll introduce the first speaker. We have a brilliant project by art school fifth year student Andrew Law Zihang. His project really illustrates this theme of disorder and paints a bit of a silver lining for any doomsday preppers out there. So yeah, if Andrew, if you share your screen, let's get started.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's see. Hi guys, do you guys hear me? Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Andrew from Macintosh School of Architecture. So today I'll be presenting my final thesis, The Arc of Antwerp. So the testbed for this thesis is located at Antwerp, a port city of Belgian River Shout. So it is a speculative provocation and provision against potential apocalypse, as the lowland region is a flood-threatening area. And the Arc of Antwerp is inspired heavily by the mythology Noah's Ark, from a sole flood barrier and ultimately becoming a preserver of the tangibles and intangibles. So basically, the thesis focuses on how Antwerp will have to deal with the apocalypse in different timeline, where the construction of Ark will be broken into several phases with a period of approximately 300 years from a sole flood barrier to a memory preservers. So Antwerp is located at the northern Flemish region of Belgium and being part of the coastal Low Countries. Branches of rivers cut through the lands of Netherlands and Belgium, where River Scheldt being one of it. So this hypothetical diagram shows a seawater rose of 5 meters and the area of land that will be engulfed eventually. So it could be said that Antwerp is being threatened. So the Delta work is a series of flood barrier constructions by Netherlands to prevent land flooding. However, there is no significant inland barrier along River Scheldt, which greatly threatens Antwerp. And one of the notable lowland city will be New Orleans, where the area of the city is now 50% as of where it used to be due to sea level rising. As according to research, it is also one that the global sea level could rise by more than 30 feet by the end of 2300s. And it is also a worrying issue that the historical city will eventually become underwater ruins, leaving no traces. So now we go to the testbed Antwerp, a city that is strongly linked to River Scheldt, a once fortified city. So in the fortified city area of Antwerp, there's a lot of historical buildings. Ruins are still preserved within the city context. The once fortified city was also, however, become a city of impermanence, of fragments characterized with different ethnicity, cultural, region, and political factors, where Antwerp is instead of losing its very originality. So Antwerp is characterized for its low topographical context with a dense urban fabrics in the middle, where the city artifacts are instead of being flooded in the future, where the flood-prone area is highlighted in brown shades, as you can see on diagrams. So in a closer context, the city will be slowly engulfed, where the city will eventually become an underwater ruin. Ultimately, all the city artifacts, memories will be eventually disappears, which leads to the idea of an arc. So the Ark of Antwerp has greatly reference to the mythology Noah's Ark, where important beings or matters are being saved from catastrophe. In this case, this thesis focuses on preserving the tangibles and intangibles. So the spatial organization actually interprets the Noah's Ark by creating a series of memory capsules, just like the room arrangement of the Noah's Ark, as you can see from the diagrams here. Okay. So the site is located on the river shelf in between of the dense urban fabric of the city of Antwerp and the developing link over, forming a strong connections where the art becomes the everyday life of the um, people, allowing the people to observe the everyday change of the city. So in a closer context, the art is built surrounded with a heavy cultural context of city artifacts such as museums, archives, cathedral, as well as footprints of environment wall, which forms a strong connections as well. And this is how the art sits in the city context. Oops, sorry. Okay, so the art consists of various components from the very flat barriers at the bottom to the archive chambers and urban rooms and to the grand walkway, which where happens the everyday people walking, to the steel art holder, as well as the art capsule where the memories are preserved. Eventually to the Garden of Eden, which is a self-sustaining garden sustained by the water stored and filtered from the river through the hydro barriers. So this is a clear diagram on how the hierarchical relationship between the flood barriers, archive chambers, the everyday walkway, the arc steel holder, the arc capsule, and also the Garden of Eden. So the arc capsule or the time capsule is a monolith that preserves the tangibles of the city, separate into three vaults, which contains archive and documents, paintings, and artifacts. So the art capsule is a self-sustaining piece of art capsule that is highly insulated with an enclosed environment that allows the tangibles to sustain a prolonged time, which is evident in the plan diagrams. It is constructed of LVL timber and lines of insulations, caulking and synthetic foam that facilitate the capsule to flow instead of sinking into the sea. Okay, so so the art is basically is constructed through a timeline depending on the flood condition as well as the need of the city. So in the year 2030, the art began its construction to become a sole hydropower flood barriers that works along with the Sigma plan. So as of 2060, the transition of being a sole flood barrier begins. It became a sheltered promenade of rooms infiltrated into a concrete grid system that allows different programs to fit in. As of 2090, seawater has rose to a significant 3 meters. Flood conditions start to threaten. The archiving room will take place to carry out the archiving process. And as of 2150, as water have risen to 5 meters, the arc capsule holder will be slotted into places with strong walls formed in between, creating a giant water walkway. So the self-sustaining arc capsule will continually prefabricated and slotted where physical artifacts will be sorted and conserved in the archive chambers. So in the year 2200, as the arc capsule has done placed into the arc holder, the arc has completed, where urban rooms are thoroughly changed as well to experience the wider footprints that the city has lost. So as the water level has rose to a significant 70 meters, the archive chamber stopped operations, leaving the arc as a floating monument along the river shelf, just like a Noah's Ark. So as we have reached the end game, where the city has vanished, the arc capsule started to float above the sea and eventually to an unknown city as a capsule that carries message. So so a clear hierarchies in terms of societal activities, materiality, spaces can be observed in this art anthropology, where it's also evident in the long section as well, where there is 4 layers of hierarchical activities, where there's flood barriers, the archive process, the grand walkway, as well as the Garden of Eden. So the hydro barrier is clearly demonstrated in the shock section as well, where the energy is driven by the Kaplan turbines, which allows water filtrations, storage, as well as energy productions. So starting from the level ground area level, it is the archival chamber filled with sequence of archiving rooms and a giant library in the middle of the arc. So the process of archiving started with a human fumigation, accession, sorting and distribution, eventually to the art capsule, some of the which contains the artifacts, films, photography archives, and paintings, and so on. And some of the artifacts will be distributed to the research laboratory or the history research room for the usage of the publics. Yep. So this is how a conservation room looks like. Okay. So so in the first level of ARC, in between of the archiving rooms, it is the civic celebratory urban rooms, casted from the urban footprints of the city, such as fragments and individual buildings. So as according to the reading of Eldorossi, as a city is considered as an urban artifacts, which eventually form the memories of the city. So the ARC is constructed of a grid system, which allows the installations of different footprints of various scales, where it's a way to revisit a certain spatial quality, but not a total application of the city artifacts. So these are urban rooms. And so the grand walkway is well linked over and the density connects. It is a giant vaulted walkway with access to the urban rooms as well as the levels on top. Okay, so it is a good example of an urban footprint as well, which it resembles the double volumes of the interior of the Cathedral of Lady Antwerp as a way to reminiscence the quality of Antwerp artifacts. So the grand walkway is a well-shared of walkway where you are able to observe the everyday change of a city or reminiscing the past and think about the future. So at the art capsule level, so it is the Garden of Eden as well as a series of art capsule, which is a reinterpretation of the plan of Noah's Ark, as each room contains different artifacts, archive, and so on. So the Garden of Eden is actually a long confined environment where becoming the last resort of the people, allowing them to take pleasure on the loss of the flora and fauna of the city in the potential future timeline. And so what is going to happen with this time capsule in the future timeline? So as the memories are casted, conserved within the art capsule, it will act as a memory capsule that will float to different regions of Europe or even the world, serving as messages or eventually coexist with the new lands. So this is how the arc will end up with. Yeah, and then that's it. Thank you.
Oh, that was great. Love that, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
So that was so interesting. Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, like please go ahead and ask them in the Q&A, and I can get Andrew to answer them for you.
Yeah.
I've got a couple though, just to kick us off. So I loved how you kind of thought of how the building kind of changed over time, relating to the different like water levels rising.
Yeah.
And like relating the building to like famous Antwerp architecture, how the city's developed using like Aldo Rossi's theories. I thought that was really good. Any first years listening, read some Aldo Rossi. That'll put you in good stead.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, so like the memories and the artifacts kept in the Ark. Did you have any space for like personal memories of like the people of Antwerp? Like a drama romantic. I'm thinking like, I don't know, where someone had their first kiss or something, you know, anyone, your little stories that like of the people that live in the city, you know?
Yeah. That's pretty true. Yeah, I think it's a good way to preserve as well. Yeah, because basically this art is basically just trying to preserve the tangibles in order to how to say, to preserve the physical artifacts to as a provocation to actually to preserve it, so that the memories of the past will not disappears in the future timeline. Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice. And I think you just like touched it on a little bit with we were seeing some internal shots of the kind of conservation room with like the kind of, was that idea of like memory. Yeah, that was great, that like that Garden of Eden image as well. But yeah, that image of the conservation room. Yep. So did you even, was that like material choices and things, was that inspired again from like Antwerp architecture, or was that
Yeah. So Antwerp is basically famous with its Flemish bricks, which there's a lot of arrangements in terms of the bricks. So this bricks kind of resonates to the architecture in Antwerp, which they actually really use the material bricks. So basically, all the infills within the rooms will be built with the material bricks, so that it creates how to say they also function as an insulation as well as to and also a reminiscence as a reference to the architecture of Antwerp. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, we love it. Don't think we've got any more from the crowd. Yeah, kind of last chance if you want to get any questions in. Kind of last question I had written down was that if you were saving any one bit of like architecture from Antwerp or anything, what would you have put in?
Okay, architectural work. This is a tough question because maybe perhaps I would just put I mean, like if in the future, basically I would put my own book maybe, if possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I like it. I like
Definitely.
it.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Okay.
Right. Well, if we've got one question coming in
Okay.
from Niall Gallagher. So he was asking if can the arc be steered or would it go where the tide takes it?
Pardon? Like the.
He asks, could the
Oh,
arc be
okay.
steered? Like, is it like driven, or is it just where the tide takes it that it just goes wherever? Like,
Basically,
yeah.
it's just the where the text takes it. It's a trick. The arc capsule itself is basically a self-sustaining piece of monolith where it doesn't depends on any energies or anything. It's just a confined environments that is really insulated to all sort of environmental issues such as the environment factors. So if you just steer, if you just afloat into a rare place in the world, yeah, basically.
Oh, okay, nice one. And I've got Carla Ferraru asking, she was saying, how do people reach it and enter it?
Okay, so basically the
Yeah.
arc capsule. Let me get to the diagrams for a while. Okay. Okay, I think you can observe from here. Okay, so basically, if you can observe from this diagram itself, there's actually rooms, I mean doors in that's being built in for the arc capsule where people can access through the piers in between, where they can access to this kind of pathway that leads to the kind of door that access to the archives. But all these artifacts will only be accessible by the how to say the people that works in the archives in the arc. But the collection is accessible when requested in the public library, where the people that works in the arc is able to get the collections to the publics, basically. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for that, Andrew. Let's get moving on to the next speaker.
Right,
so next we have Catherine Campbell. If you can make her host. So yeah, Catherine Campbell, third year project at Strathclyde. So here she applies the idea of like disorder, more in like the context of that our building's in, and applies it in quite an interesting way. So yeah, here we go, Catherine. You can share your screen.
Yeah, 3 seconds. There we go. There we go. Thank you. So, yep, I'm Catherine, and this is my undergraduate thesis for third year at the University of Strathclyde. And so it's called Honbu, which means headquarters in Japanese. And it's the brief we were given was to design a performance space in the midst of the chaos. So in this chaotic world, or whether it's just chaos in your lives, it was a performance space. And unlike typical performance spaces, instead of using it to escape the chaos, this Hornbu would actually help the people using the performance space to confront the chaos in their lives through traditional martial arts, which helps create discipline and respect and a goal for yourself as well. So it's located in the Barras, which is in Glasgow, which is has two fantastic existing buildings on the site, which is the old pipe factory you can see here, and the gap site in between. And the Barras is known for its open outdoor markets, where the vendors were the showmen of the time, and they had a full range and variety of things to sell you. So having a look at the art of war, martial arts, there's 5 main categories that can span across, and it ranges from Shotokan karate types all the way to capoeira, which is a dance form of martial art. And by having all of these in the one area, in the one headquarters, it would allow everyone to use it, and a huge array of performance scene and something for everyone, just like the Barras markets as well. So I took all of the areas for the competing space over the range of 5 parts of martial arts, and by combining them into the one arena, this enables people to have a try at everything. It's a flexible arena, and it is more accessible for the whole community, so it can really bring everyone together if they're perhaps into boxing, or maybe they're actually into judo or kendo instead. The key thing for Hornbu was to bring in the public, just like the Barras. It's a community-driven area, and in order to do that, it would be to create an exhibition and make the building a working museum. And that's instead of just having one room as a museum, it would actually involve the arena, the competition space, and also the training gyms as being live exhibitions. So you can freely wander around the Hornbu headquarters and be inspired by people training, watching demonstrations or competitions as well. And the concept was to use the 2 old pipe factory buildings, these existing buildings, as they're fantastic, instead of demolishing them, and create a duality between them, one being kept for practice and one being kept for theory, so that they had to rely on each other. Therefore, a physical connection between each other and architecturally would be needed. I was inspired by the Tower of Winds by Toyo Ito to create a peak and a trough as well. There used to be a chimney, in fact, between the 2 buildings, but that was demolished in a fire. So this pays homage back to the history of the site, and also creating levels again inspired by pagodas, which you can see with these connections coming across, acting as bridges, and having the circulation between the 2 buildings that keeps that duality. It keeps people using both of the buildings, whereas vertically it's individual on each of the buildings. So I was inspired by origami and also samurai armour to create a penetrable facade. And for this peak and trough, I experimented with lots of different light as well. You need different environments for different martial arts. You might prefer to be in a more calm environment if you're doing Tai Chi, or maybe in a more light-driven environment for something a bit heavier as well. So as the ground is pitted in a trough, this is the underground plan, dug down with rammed earth, and then that allows some services and preparation rooms as well. On the ground floor, you can see this penetrable fortress that I've created as the facade, with this open area. It's like a reflection pavilion, so it's open air and it's outdoors as well. And that creates a reflection pool here in order for you to walk around, and you can see the arena that's pitted down. On the ground floor, I've kept retail and also kept cafe space, which leads out into lovely reflection gardens, in order to really pull the public in, keep this as the public sector down, the public realm down on the ground floor. When you go onto the first floor, That's when the bridges begin to connect. And as they look round, you're able to get different glances of the competition arena as well. And this bridge at the south side it's exposed, so it's open air, whereas this one is enclosed between the two buildings. On this building is the dojo, and it repeats on all levels, whereas this building is some sort of service that is needed in order to create the duality. So here it's changing rooms, so that you'd have to be changed, and then you walk over into the dojo. And then on the upper level, the dojo again, and this time a gym. And then third floor, dojo, and this time it's an exhibition space. There's the exhibition all the way through, but this one here is to have a collection of the culture of martial arts. And then the fourth floor has a traditional tea room, and then also a private study library with outdoor gardens. And then the bridges all connect again, and each time they stagger. This is the east elevation, where you can see this fortress. It's rooted from the ground. It keeps the levels, the datum lines within the pipe factory buildings, which you can see there. And also the top parts which protrude out actually bring in rainwater, whereas the legs that extend out allow you gaps so you can walk in and wander yourself through into the reflection pavilion. On the south elevation, you can see the staggering of the bridges. These are the outdoor ones, and they stagger in so that you can get better views of the arena, which is underneath, but also this is residential here, so they actually stagger away for that and create a bit of privacy between that. And also the colours, it's made from cork steel, timber, and lots of lovely greenery, and stacked glass as well, which gives off a green colour. So it's all fits well within the environment and pays homage to the Barra's market sheds, which are there. In this section, and you can see it closer here, you can see the staggering of bridges, and it's all about getting glimpses of people moving throughout the building, and it creates interest and intrigue and wandering up. And you can see how this facade system brings in the water and creates this reflection pavilion. Completely, it's creating a duality between the city and then also nature, as it brings you into a completely different area. And in the axonometric, you can see how the key parts of the building all work together. So exhibition, the arena, and then the dojo space as well. With the dojo space, there's paneling inspired by Japanese paneling, which allows the more exhibition boards to be put up so that it's a continuous exhibition, you're learning all the way through. Then you also have glass panels where you can sit and you can spectate, whether you're watching your friends, your son or daughter, or you're just wanting to learn a wee bit more about training. And this is from Street View, so you can see it rooted from the ground. It's a solid, strong structure that has its folds and its weaves, and it pulls you in with the extending legs to walk around. It's a sculptural form, just like origami. Once you've wandered round, you reach the reflection pavilion, where you can see the bridges begin to overlap and the reflection pool as well. And this creates an audio break from the city. So you've just come from a harsh environment, a busy road, and then you're completely transformed into this area. It's also glass, so you can view what is happening in the competition arena without having to pay for a ticket, unless you're wanting to sit in. And this is because the Barra's markets, it's all about community, and it's open markets, so you can always go up and you can see and you can hear the commentary of the vendors. So this is the same, it's to create that accessibility of seeing what's going on, and hopefully inspiring you as well. So whatever chaos that is in your life or in the world, that this is actually going to bring you to be inspired by it. When you're sitting watching an event, it's got this kind of Spartan-like opening coming out for the competitors. But when you're sitting, your eye can wander and linger up through the weaves of the bridges through the two existing buildings, which are connected by glass, so they never really feel like they're touching the building, and your eye can wander and linger up as they weave through. Inside the bridges, these bridges they're almost like a living facade, a living wall. It wraps around the building, and you can use that as well. So that is the main idea, that the architecture is the bridges, and it brings nature in, and you can see the green tint off of the stacked glass, allowing glimpses all the way throughout the building. And in the dojo space, it's a fantastic area that I would actually love to train in. And you can see the spectating area as well, with the exhibition boards that you would be revealed when you walk around, you'd be revealed into this space. And lastly, the bird's eye view. So looking down at the winding between the two reused buildings, and it's got this glass opening at the top, so it allows at all times different sunlight levels. It allows for a different environment for the competitors, which is a huge benefit, because with martial arts, it's instinctive and no situation is always going to be the same. So if you're competing, then it's always challenging yourself as well, as no environment will always be the same. And yeah, that's Honbu.
Oh, that was amazing. Really enjoyed that, Catherine. That was so good. So yeah, guys, if you've got any questions, yeah, try to get them in that Q&A, and can get started with, yeah, finding out a bit more about the project. Yeah, I'll start it off like last time. Yeah, I thought the project was like so good, Catherine. Yeah, I love the kind of, see that thing you said at the end there about that unpredictability of kind of martial arts, and I think that works really well at the barras, because you know, you never really know what you're going to find there. There's such different characters that like work there as well. I thought that was like quite a nice relationship between the two.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of like, you know, if someone gets ripped off at the barras and they're unhappy, they can just go fight it out at the dojo, you know. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask was like, you were talking about like bringing the community in a lot more, in like from the barras into the building. So you mentioned like the exhibition space. So would there be kind of like, I don't know, some fighting that's more suited to like, say, you know, British like traditions as well? Would that be incorporated?
Yeah, well, the exhibition space, I'll just go back to the axle. It's inspired as well by Japanese woodwork, so it's all paneling that can be changed anytime. So perhaps maybe, well, if this is the Scotland's home of martial arts, you could have a huge, you know, festival coming, and you could change the exhibition. You could bring in people in maybe a specific type. It could be a whole week of boxing. It could be a whole week of judo or aikido, and then you could have, even the space isn't just for you know, competitions, it's for demonstrations as well. So if someone's got, you know, perhaps a new martial art that they're wanting to bring to the mix, and because I had done a lot of research on traditional martial arts, but then there's also evolved martial arts that people have, you know, mixed different ones together. So it's got that opportunity for it to be flexible with everyone. So if there's more of a British style of martial art, then absolutely that can be, you know, added into the full mix of them all.
Oh, great. So it won't be just Far East martial arts, it'll be like East End of Glasgow martial arts. Yeah. 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 I'll just ask another wee question. So I loved that you were kind of exploring with models first, to try like work out that kind of origami inspiration, and even for ways of letting light in. So I don't know if you can go back to those pictures of the models that were really nice.
There we go.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, I think the screen's just, oh yeah, got you there. Yeah, so did you end up incorporating quite a lot of these in the building? Or was it just more of a kind of exploration kind of exercise?
Yeah, it was definitely an exploration. It was trying to understand, you know, how light works with different forms, and especially this kind of like, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but like bringing in direct light and how it would move as well, pinch points and things like that between all of the timbers, the timber bridges. So it was for exploration, but you know, it adds to the process of where do I need this kind of light that would actually allow a scattering on the floor and things like that. And the facade models, the weaves, really brought the idea of like an origami, more of a sculpture. When I was making them, that's where it flipped from, oh, this is going to be, you know, just a functional facade. This is actually going to be more of a sculptural element to it when I was making the models for them.
Oh, brilliant. I've got a wee question in from Eva. She was saying, what was the hardest thing regarding your project?
Well, working with the two buildings are fantastic, the old pipe factory buildings, and we were lucky enough to get the plans for them as well. But with any B-listed building, you know, it's trying to understand what is it that you're wanting to do with the building without, you know, ruining it in such a way. And so I was trying to work out how these bridges were going to actually work with the two buildings and the architectural language for that, how it was going to, you know, what were they going to pierce through the building? Was it going to gracefully weave through, like I had chosen at the end? It was really just, you know, working out that, how what was, you know, the connection between the new and the old. Yeah.
Nice. Got another wee question from Niall. He was saying the mix of physical and digital modelling is interesting. Was the exterior view a physical model? Did you work that up like physically first, or?
No, it was all at the end. It was a computer model for the visuals at the end. Like this one here, I had made the mini models, but then when everything we were put out of the studios and it came to crunch time, it was all 3D work that I had made.
All right, nice one. So I think we're going to move on. That was really good. Great, Catherine. Love that.
Thank you.
Even Eva has typed in as well. That was amazing work. Congrats.
Thank you.
So last we have Rebecca Hodolova from the art school. And her great project deals like not with disorder in the context that we've just seen, but mostly kind of within our, another kind of interesting aspect to it. So yeah, if you go ahead and share your screen, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you very much. There we go. Can you all see it? Yeah, perfect. So hello, my name is Rebecca and I'm an architecture student at Glasgow School of Art. And today I'm going to talk to you about a project I did last year. So in my 4th year, it was an urban housing project based in the Merchant City, right here, just off Trongate, where the whole big vacant site is. So it started out as a group project. We did our site research and then we developed our thesis individually, and we were all given part of this gigantic site to work on our housing designs. We were also asked to take a stance on the topic of labor and domesticity, and please keep in mind during this presentation that majority of my observations were of the pre-pandemic world. So during our site analysis, we identified 2 types of demographic present on our site, both having quite a radical and dysfunctional relationship with labor. Group A were the busy looking people who were rushing to and from work, looking over work and in need of a retreat. Group B were the people who suffered from homelessness and were illegally living on our site. Their situation showed how big of an issue it is not to be able to have labor within your life in terms of financial stability, health, but also social status. In 1920s and 1930s, status equaled how much leisure you could afford. For example, having a tan was also a status symbol. It meant that you could afford to be lying on a beach. As a woman of that time, work was something you pretended to never take part in and definitely could not be seen doing. All the labor just effortlessly happened in the back of the house, hidden away, while all the places for leisure were celebrated in the front of the house. However, nowadays we could say that our reputation equals being busy. We take pride in being a busy person. It is a constant competition of who works more and sleeps and lives less. And even though we can all feel that this model is unsustainable, none of us are really willing to give the status of a busy person up. So we can say that nowadays the status equals how much we work. When I was looking through the Mental Health Foundation studies, I found out that we are in fact overworking in huge numbers. It is affecting our mental health, and this dissolving barrier between labor and domesticity is one of the key unhealthy factors in it. Therefore, I tried to create a building that would respond to this issue. I wanted to cater for the need of a working, productive facade while creating a retreat from work, a place where pure leisure can be celebrated on the inside. So you could metaphorically keep a facade of a hardworking, busy person while enjoying the benefits of a hidden labor-free oasis. A building district that would spatially but also mentally isolate labor and domesticity for you, and by doing so, tries to teach you to relax and enjoy your leisure. So the three main factors that I was trying to investigate in my project were first, the creation of a labor facade sheltering the retreat from the city. Second, reintroduction of this healthy barrier between labor and domesticity, even though they might be spatially close to one another. And third, in terms of the housing, I wanted to investigate a concept of sustainable co-living where private space is challenged and communal living is encouraged. So here you can see a very basic master plan of this thesis put into a diagram. And on the left, you can see the part of the area that I was given overlaid on my thesis. And on the right, you can see my other group members' proposals, how they developed it later. And here is a 3D model, a massing model of the same. So this one over here would be the mine corner that I will be talking about. So in terms of the housing, I introduced the concept inspired by the Lilac community in Leeds, a mutual home ownership scheme, and I took it a little bit further. Here in my housing unit, nobody owns a specific flat. Everybody owns shares from the entire housing complex, including mutual spaces, hallways, and gardens. I designed 3 types of unit, a single unit, double unit, and a big unit. And as the time progresses and your people's situations change, swapping of units occur. And however, all the communal spaces stay the same. And these are the spaces that you're encouraged to use the most anyway. Here we have a layout of a typical single unit. The more private the space, the deeper it is within the plan. And all the units look out to this semi-private, semi-public terrace, which not only serves as your terrace, as you can see here, but also as the main circulation space. And these spaces in the center are the communal spaces, and you share them with your immediate neighbors. And as it stacks up, it also goes back. So it always had sunshine on these outside corridors. And here we have a view from one of them. And to make it work with this dual function, I was using a lot of Yangel's studies into interaction distances to help me design this division between having a private space, but also encouraging the communal living. And I also used a lot of his studies in terms of the height of the whole housing block. So it never uses the connection with the ground floor and with the outside courtyard. Now, in terms of reintroducing the barrier between labor and domesticity, first of all, I separated them to 2 different blocks, the red one being the housing and the brown one being the labor. Second of all, I designed a green barrier or a green belt surrounding the labor buildings, as you can see here on the ground floor plan. And you always had to walk through this. First of all, you always have to walk through outside. And second of all, you always have to walk through this green barrier, which is a forest-like area with deep-rooted trees and series of small pools inspired by a Japanese architect called Yohani Ishigami. Sorry for my pronunciation. And the unique character of this area distinguishes it from the courtyard and the rest of the green spaces. So you really feel that this is a special barrier. And not only does it have this function of division, but it also serves as a rainwater harvesting and stormwater management solution. The rainwater will be collected from the roofs and it will be brought, some of it will be utilized, and then it will be brought to this green belt surrounded by the climate wall, which keeps the rest of the buildings and the rest of the courtyard safe from this water. Because during excessive rainfall, this green belt can get completely flooded, and the climate wall will then slowly filtrate this water to the soil, and the rest that doesn't get used back to the sewage system. This solution is inspired by a Danish practice called Lendiger Group and their project called the Future Courtyard. The distance of the whole green belt was also inspired by some of Yangel's studies into people's attention and when they stop viewing one activity and start to perceive another type of a space. But not only does this labor and domesticity barrier happen on the ground floor, it continues on the upper floor as well. With carefully designed green walls, roof gardens, and internal green spaces, I was attempting to block a direct visual connection from the housing unit or the retreat towards the workspaces. So you could practically never see your actual workspace from the place where you were supposed to be enjoying your leisure. And this is a drawing of all the green barriers that are on the site. Here is a view from one of the top units out, and as you can see, the building on the left through her window should be the labor building, but all this lady is able to see is the nice greenery. And last but not least, in terms of the labor facade, I tried to create a facade that would blend into this merchant city kind of a vibe, and it would be very ordered, and it would always block your visual connection towards the retreat. All you could ever see was the work facade with little pops of greenery here and there. And in terms of its functionality, I wanted it to be made out of sandstone, but in an ecological manner. So I again got inspired by one of Landeger's group projects where they reuse bricks and other block work into panels, which are then mounted onto the buildings. And here in the last drawing, we have a perspective cross-section of all the different topics I was talking about that tie the project together. You have the housing unit with the outside corridors and terraces, and then the communal spaces on the ground floor, the courtyard, the green belt, and then the labor building on the right. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Rebecca. That was really good. I thought that's since I'm on holiday right now while I'm doing this, and you're talking about like that shift between leisure and work, I think that's pretty apt for me. So yeah, anyone, it's the last one. If anyone's got a wee burning question to ask to Rebecca, let's get that submitted to the Q&A. I've a couple of things I was thinking about. Was that I really loved the way of like basically entering from that busy merchant city, that kind of that hustle and bustle of Argyle Street, and coming into that beautiful courtyard that you had, and it just made such like a nice like kind of threshold to kind of go through that facade and forget your like worries of working. I thought that was really great. But see, for the kind of the aspect of like labour in the building, I know it was just in that one block, but is that what type of labour is that like including? Was that just for like people just on computers? Was that like communal work? Is that kind of communal work encouraged, that these people kind of lived close together, they worked together? Can you just like expand on that a wee bit?
Yeah, definitely. So there were some smaller office spaces as well that you could rent out for smaller businesses. There were some shared workshop spaces. There was a big library in this side of the building. I also tried to cater for some restaurants or somewhere you could go for lunch, so you actually don't have to go back home for those purposes. And then there were also, on the higher floors, there were also bigger office spaces that you could rent out or communally work with some of your other residents from the housing block. So I tried to cover all the different sizes and all the different things that people might need when starting a business or when trying to work from an outside space.
Oh, okay, yeah, nice one. Yeah, I can definitely see that through in the plan. But like, see, I know you mentioned at the start, like, oh, we're not taking into account like COVID right now. But see, even in future, as you think like the role of work changes, do you think the building will adapt to that? Or
yeah, I think that if I had a chance to continue working on the actual concept over the pandemic, I think it would get another level of this division, as you said, between labor and domesticity, that loads of us suddenly had to face this issue of having it in our own flats and bedrooms and stuff. So I think it would definitely add another dimension to the project of how it would have to adapt. But I still feel that during this time, I would prefer to live in a place where I could go through an outside space to my workspace and not just have a Zoom call in the middle of a bedroom. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Is there any other wee questions coming up to the end of the session? None coming. Well, I'll just take this moment to say, right, thanks to all the speakers and presenters. I thought all these projects were really great. I think we've started off at a really high level for the Behind the Prize series. Thanks for Doors Open Day for helping organise it. And just to say that on Wednesday, we'll be having the second event, Wednesday, and then the Friday. Same time, just register on the Eventbrite for tickets. So yeah, thanks very much, guys, and see you Wednesday.